this video, I thought I'd talk about camper vans. As I've said in previous videos, I get lots and lots of messages and I try to answer them as best I can, but I suppose it's that time of year. People are thinking about the summer coming along and thinking of getting camper vans, and quite a few people actually planning for retirement and thinking of getting a motorhome or a camper van, and going through that process that we've probably all been through of trying to decide, do I buy a van, do I try to do it myself, do I do some of it myself, do I get somebody else to do it, or do I go out and buy a motorhome? So I just thought I'd put a video together. We're just on the way to the beach, me and Louis, for a wander, and I just thought I'd put a video together with my thoughts around it. And it's interesting really, because you're seeing a number of videos that are coming out now that are promoting van conversion vans done by a company. And what I mean by that is small companies that are taking vans and doing conversions on them. And there's like 4x4 vans and the new crafter vans, etc, etc. And some of the prices of these are very high. So there's a van being on a couple of videos recently, that's the modern crafter, and for the 4x4 van and a conversion is 100,000 quid. And for me that's a bit ridiculous really. You know, why would you spend £100,000 on a van like that? I just don't know. I suppose if you've got endless money and it doesn't matter, you would do it, but realistically there's few people out there that could actually do that. And I suppose thinking about it, if I really wanted one because of my circumstances, yeah, I could actually buy a £100,000 van, but I would never ever do that because I just can't justify having that much expenditure in a van for what you actually get. And the story behind this van, if you haven't seen it, I'll just quick run through it. We had a T5 and we've had camper vans and variations of camper vans over the years, and we wanted something bigger. We wanted something with a fixed bed. So I was originally going to buy a van and convert it myself. And if I run out of time, I was going to buy various services in to do bits and pieces on the van. So I started to look around, and I thought it'd be quite nice to have an automatic, and it'd be quite nice to have 4x4. But when you think about it, a 4x4 van, do you really need one of those in the UK and most of Europe? Are you actually going to go anywhere that extreme to use it? And are they that capable off-road as well? Now, I've had lots of 4x4s, lots of Land Rovers and Range Rover, and I used to do lots of off-roading. So I've had everything from a Series 1 80-inch Land Rover with a V8 in it, that was custom built, and I've had all sorts in between, lots of Discoveries, and I've got mates that do Land Rovers and custom built Land Rovers. And when you think about it, I've even got a 4x4 now. It's not a Land Rover, but I've got a 4x4 now. But when you think about it, how often do you actually use a 4x4? It was slightly different for me because having a Land Rover, I used to do lots of scuba diving. I was part of a rescue service, so I was a lifeboat coxswain, and we had a small sailing boat. And so we used to use the 4x4 to drag the boats about and to enable us to launch the boats as well. But even in those circumstances, the majority of places we wanted to launch our boat, we couldn't actually launch it with the Land Rover or the Range Rover because it would just simply sink in the sand or the mud and you'd be stuck there forevermore. So you had to go somewhere that had a launching service with a tractor, and some places actually needed a 4x4 tractor. So I suppose it was part of the image. They're a comfy car, they're nice to use. So we had Land Rovers and Range Rovers for years, and you know, despite all the cost of them and everything else, they're not the most reliable ones. My Range Rover, my last Range Rover, the gearbox went faulty in it and it cost £8,000 to sort the gearbox out. So they're not cheap things to run, the service costs are high, and they're not that reliable. So why would you want a 4x4 camper van? Where are you actually going to go? So if you look at other channels and people that live in camper vans full time, so like Martin from Houseless Not Homeless, he has a very old van and he's forever trying to go down off-road lanes all over Europe, including Scotland and various places in the UK. And his is just two-wheel drive, and he uses waffle boards. He gets those underneath there, and he manages to get himself out most of the time, or he finds somebody to help him, tow him out if he actually gets stuck. So why do you actually need a 4x4 camper van? Is it status? Is it just that extra bit in case you can use it? And how good are they off-road as well? So if you look at something like a transporter, you can get a 4x4 version of one of them, but they're not that capable off-road. And if you get something like a crafter, the big, the heavy, once they're kitted out with everything in, they're not going to be that good off-road, so they're not going to be that reliable off-road. You're still going to need waffle boards, and if you're going to push it to a particular point, you're probably going to need a tractor to actually drag you out if you get stuck. So why would anybody want to spend the extra money on a 4x4? I suppose it looks good, it's more rugged, it gives it's probably a status value, but it's not really needed when you think about it. If you're just going to be in the UK and parts of Europe, and depending where you're actually going to go in your van, you probably never use 4x4. And even in my Range Rover, for all the things I did, all the outdoor activities and dragging boats around and all over the place in my Range Rover, I very, very rarely put it into diff lock or 4x4. I could get away with two-wheel drive because it had decent tyres on it. But saying that, when I was looking at this van, I was actually thinking about buying a 4x4 van that was automatic. And I looked all over the place at the various prices, and the most economic version that had the best spec was the Transit. So the new Transit, you can buy a 4x4 version of that, and it comes in automatic, and it comes with all the buzzers and bells, all the parking sensors and everything else with it. And it was at that point I was looking round to buy one of these, and you can buy a brand new 4x4 Transit with all the whistles and bells, a top spec one, for about 32 grand. And then I was thinking, I'll do most of the work myself, and if I run out of time, I can take it to various companies or specialists to do bits and pieces. And I was thinking I'd put a budget together for about, I don't know, 25,000 and have the van bespoke as exactly as it was going to be. So if you think around that, even having a van, a brand new van, bespoke made by a manufacturer, a camper van converter, you're still at not too much of a ridiculous price compared to actually buying one off the shelf. And if you buy one off the shelf, you're going to be having to have their specifications and their setup, and not exactly how you want it. And what happened for me, I was looking around, and this van I'm in now, this Crafter, was advertised on eBay, and I thought it was four-wheel drive. And I emailed the guy, sent him a message, and I said, I'm very interested in the van, can I come and have a look at it? And it wasn't until I actually went to have a look at it I realised it wasn't 4x4. Now I took it for a test drive, and it was only just 2.5 years old, and it'd only done 12,000 miles, and the majority of the kit out was done. It wasn't completely to the standard I wanted and in the format I wanted it, but the price at 29,000 quid was amazing. So I was getting a nearly new van, most of the work had been done, a lot of the expense had been done, and all I had to do was to modify and adapt it to suit my needs. So this van, with everything, including the wheels, the tyres, the roof rack, everything I've done to it today, it probably owes me about 36,000 quid. And then you think, what would I, if I was doing this again, if I decided, I don't know, if this got stolen or it got written off or something, if I was doing this again, what would I do? Would I go out and spend a silly amount of money buying another one? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't actually do that. I would look to buy a second-hand van of good quality, so you get rid of the VAT and the initial lossage that you get after the first couple of years of buying a van. I'd look for the top spec van I can get with the right equipment in it. And if I didn't have the time, or if somebody didn't have the skills, I would take it to various places to get various bits and pieces done. Or I'd employ people like CJ from Project Amber, to come down and do various bits and pieces for me, and then I'd carry on doing the rest of the bits and pieces. So there's an opportunity out there to get yourself an excellent van, a bespoke van that's purposely built to meet your needs, where you don't have to spend 100,000 quid or anywhere near that. You know, there's people out there, if you look at the Boondockers, Purdy and Kirsty and Kaelin, their van, I think the full thing probably only cost them about $3,500. Okay, it's not the best and they've had lots of problems with it, but they've got themselves a camper van and they're using it and they're living in it, and they're working their way now to looking at a different van. Or if you look at Martin from Houseless Not Homeless, he's got a very old van that he's constantly putting together, and he uses it all over the place. He doesn't restrict himself to where he goes or what he does. He gets all over the place, and you know, at least once a month it seems to be from his videos, he's getting stuck somewhere. So you don't have to spend a fortune on a custom built van. The other thing as well is about motorhomes, and I suppose it's all about the individual as well. Having a motorhome, you know, you can, if you look at motorhome prices, and you've got to understand how the marketing's done on this. If you look at the range of motorhomes that are available, a large proportion of them are around the £50,000 mark. Now, what happens within the marketing side of these companies is they understand that the biggest potential of people to enable them, the biggest potential of people that could be their customers that could have that kind of money are of a certain age group. They're an age group where they've probably inherited some money from their parents dying or relations dying, or they're taking retirement. And if you take retirement, you can, of course, in most pensions, take a lump sum of £50,000. So the vans are actually created and developed and done on a budget to enable them to gain their profit and to be on the market at around that price. So if you look at across all the vans, if you go to a motorhome place and look at new vans, you'll see a significant number of them around the £50,000 mark. 50, 60, maybe 70,000 quid, a large proportion of them. And there's not that many underneath that price. But that's nothing to do predominantly with how much they cost. This is about market forces. This is about the market forces out there that know what the customer's going to be. It's going to be of a certain age, probably 50, 55, 60, 65. They're going to be retiring, they're going to take a lump sum from their pension, and they're going to buy a motorhome to go on an odd weekend or a week away travelling and probably just go on campsites. So if you buy one of these and actually go and have a look at some of these and start to pull and tug on the various bits and fittings that are in the van, they're not always the best quality. They're built to a budget. These companies are not there for the good of the life to improve motorhoming. These companies are there to make money, and these churn these vans out as soon and as possible, as soon and as fast as they can on the lowest budget to make the biggest profit. They are profit-making companies. And where we live in East Yorkshire, a large proportion of the caravans and motorhomes are made in this area, and we have many friends that work in that industry, and they are thrown together. They're constantly thrown together. They come out of the factories on a conveyor belt constantly. And if you look at things like channels like Gadget John on Tour, Gadget John's van is just made over the river from us. And he's had endless amounts of problems with that, and it was literally thrown together. It was a brand new van that was literally thrown together, and he had to take it completely apart and then rebuild it partly to make it safe and to adapt it how it was best to use for himself. So you can go down the line of going to a showroom, you get your redundancy, you get your pension, you inherit some money, and you go around a few showrooms, you see some wise guy who's the salesman, and he talks you into buying one that's all done brand new. So you buy yourself a brand new van, all pretty tardy, and within weeks the door handles fall off, the cupboards fall off, it rattles. The quality of some of the vans are appalling, absolutely appalling. You only have to look on YouTube channels at some of the reviews of brand new vans that are on test, and you'll see that they just fall apart. They're not built to the quality that's expected. The difference in buying a van yourself and converting it yourself, or having specialist people to do things. So if you're buying a van and you take it to a specialist company, you can say to that specialist company, I want this building in this way by this equipment, and it wants to be at this quality, and they'll price you that piece of equipment or a piece of that fitting, and they'll do it to the standard you require, and then you pay for what you actually get. So having a van and then having it bespoke, built to your best needs, to best meet your needs, and having stuff done by individuals or even a company doing it, you have the opportunity to quality control that as you go along. And like anything, when you buy in, you pay a deposit and you say, I'll pay the rest of the money when it's complete, or when you've done that piece of work and I'm happy with it. And there's nothing more persuading than when you go and buy something and you've laid a deposit, they've done all the work and it isn't up to your standard. You say, well, I'm not going to pay the rest of the money until you get it right. And generally speaking, these companies are small companies, they're 3 or 4 people who work there, and they'll do the best they can. And the quality of that will take the time and effort to do something properly. But there again, if you look on channels like Greg Vega or Mel's World, there are endless amounts of channels out there that will show you how to do every conceivable thing you need to do to build your camper van. To build your camper van in the way you want it to be. And the other thing around that as well is that there's lots of meetups around the country. So there's one coming up in Stratford-upon-Avon in April. I'll pass on the information later on because I haven't got it with me at the moment. But that one there will be a number of us YouTubers. The regulars will be there. I'll be there. I think Lost in Europe's going to be there. Gadget John's going to be there. I think Darren from Urban Motorhomes is going to be there. I think CJ even might be there, the Boomers might be there. So there'll be a number of vans there that we've agreed to be in one area and open our vans up and be there to ask questions and meet people and talk about vans as part of it. But aside to that, it's the Overland show, and you'll see endless amounts of big Overland and various configurations of vans and things that people have built or bespoke vans. But there's an opportunity, and one example of an opportunity where you can go to a meetup. I know there's ones on the south coast where Luke's Van Life, he actually goes to one down south somewhere on a regular basis. These meetups are the perfect opportunity to go around and have a look. You can go around other people's vans, you can open doors, you can ask the questions, you can ask them how the various fitted bits out. And generally these people are very open. They'll say, you can ask them, how much did the van cost? How long did it take? How did you do that? I don't know how to do it. Would you do it for us? So people like CJ from Project Amber, he offers a service where he actually comes around and he'll do various jobs for you, obviously at a price, but he'll come round to you and do particular jobs for you on your van. So if there's a particular area of work that you're not confident about, you can bring somebody in like CJ to actually do the work for you. He gets something out of it. You'll know it'll be done right because he's done this for a living and he's been around this for quite a while now. There's opportunities there to actually get a van built even if you don't really have the skills yourself. There's some of the things you can do are very, very straightforward and easy, but some of the more technical bits and pieces, people seem to be scared of wiring. I don't know why. I mean, I used to be an electronics engineer, so it's not a big thing to me, but the 12-volt wiring can be very, very simple. You don't need to make that complicated. But if you're not confident, you're desperate to get a van, you want to limit your budget because you don't want to skint yourself, and you want the van to be able to be used, and you want some money in your back pocket to actually go out and use it, and you don't want to go out and try to buy a van that's going to cost you an absolute fortune and then you've got no money left to use it. So there's loads of opportunities out there for the various meetups throughout the year. Camp Quakey, I suppose all the tickets have gone for that now, but Camp Quakey is another one where that's just self-built camper vans predominantly, and they open up the vans and you have hundreds and hundreds of vans to look at, and people will answer all your different questions and show you around the vans and tell you what it's all about. So what I'm trying to get at to this really is that the growing demand for camper vans and motorhomes, and everybody seems to want one. Everybody wants to want one, and there's businesses out there that will provide you one that's all done, and they'll even build it to your specification, but not everybody has that kind of money, do they? I think the critical thing that I would say is, if you're going to build or have somebody build your van, make sure you get the best possible van you can. Do not scrape on the van and then spend more money on the fit out. I would say to people, spend as much money as you possibly can to get the best van, the low mileage, the best specification, least rust, the best possible van you can possibly get, and if you can get it with a warranty, even better. And then if you haven't got a lot of money left, you can build your van proportionately over time as it develops, rather than trying to get it all done in a short period of time and scrimping on the amount of money you're going to spend on a van. Because there'll be nothing worse than buying a van. I mean, it happened to the Boondockers, didn't it? It happened to them. They got a van, it was 800 quid. They had to have it welded back together. They finally fitted it out, they got it all sorted. They had lots of problems getting it done, and then after about 6-7 months the engine went, which caused them major problems, and is still causing them costs at the moment. But everybody hasn't got lots of money, but you need to predict what potentially can go wrong if you do get a camper van. And there's nothing worse in the world if you get a camper van and you've put your life and soul into this camper van, and then the actual mechanics of the van means that you can't afford to actually use it. It's going to cost a fortune, or it's cheaper to get rid of the van and get another one, because the time and effort that actually goes into kitting these vans out is significant. You know, they can't just be done on the weekend. They take some significant time to do. And of course the other good thing is that if you're building your own van, or you're getting a bespoke van built for you by one or two van builders or specialists, you can have it exactly how you want it. You can have the bed the size you want, you can have the fridge where you want, you can have headroom, cupboards, swiveling seats, anything you possibly want you can have, and it's bespoke to your specifications. So you're not in that situation where you're going to a motorhome place and you're buying a van that's been done on a budget and a specific layout. I mean, for instance, on this, there's been a number of reviews recently for the Grand California, and the Grand California is basically a crafter that VW have built into a camper van. Now when you actually look at this, and I've had the opportunity to have a look at one, they've crammed so much into there to try to tick so many boxes for people. It's just not practical. You pull the bed down that's above the front seats and put the ladder in, you can't move anywhere. The toilet unit is that big, it restricts your movements backwards and forwards. Some of the fittings are not that brilliant. The layout is set, you can't modify it in any way. And you're talking like 70,000 quid for that van. Now if you'd have had the 70,000 quid, you could have bought a brand new van of any type which suited you best, and you could have taken it to one place or a number of places, or even done some work yourself and had it kitted out. I know it's not as easy and it's not as quick as it is just to go to a dealership and throw a load of cash on the table and say I'll have that one. But the practicalities about it behind it and getting something that's best for you, I think is more important than just throwing money at it. So where we are with this van? Well, it's doing us really well. We're away in it nearly every weekend. We have some longer trips. I'm still modifying and adapting it. The other thing you find with camper van, I want to do this, I want more lights in here, I want different fittings here, I'm going to fit one of these, I'm going to change that. So even if you do have a bespoke van built, once you've used it, you might decide to change things, or your needs might change as well. You might buy a van because you've got a young family and you need a couple of bunk beds in there for the kids. Then a few years later on, when they grow up, the bunk beds are no good, so you're ripping those out and you're modifying it. You are more adaptable to actually do that if it's not being built by a manufacturer to their specifications. If it's been put together in a standard van, it's usually unscrewable and modifiable, if that's a word, to enable you to actually alter it to then suit your needs later on. The other thing I'd consider as well is the cost of some of these bespoke built vans. So that manufacturer built vans. So you'll spend £100,000 on a camper van, and it's like having a brand new car. As soon as you drive it out of that showroom, as soon as you put some miles on it, you'll lose significant value of the price of that van. It's not going to be worth 100 grand in a month's time. But it can actually work the other way around if you're actually building a van yourself. If you get a good van and you have a good fit out and you design it appropriately and get the proper thing, the important things done properly, you actually might find that your van in a year or 2 years' time is still worth the same or more than it actually cost you to run. And a good instance for that is this van here. I paid 29,000 quid for the bare van, and I've probably spent about another £6,000 on modifications, wheels, tyres, roof racks and all the bits and pieces. I have had a number of genuine offers from people that want a van straight away, don't want to go through the rigmarole of building one, and can't find a manufacturer built one to the specification they want. They've offered me 50 grand, and I've had about 4 or 5 of those genuine offers. And this is people that are coming up to retirement, or they've come into some money, like I said before. They've got 50 grand and they just want to buy a van and go and use it. So they see my van and go, oh yeah, I like that, it's got this, it's got that, the other, it looks good, yeah, it's all as I want it, I'll give you 50 grand for it, will you sell it? And that, it was tempting to start with, because you think, oh wow, 35, 36 grand in that, and then get 50 grand for that, right, I might do another one, buy another van, do it out. But when you think about it, if I buy another van, I have to find the other van, I have to put the time into actually building the van, and the time lost with actually using it. So realistically, how long would it take? Well, I'm still working part-time at the moment, so I work 4 days a week. So if I spent a couple of days a week and some nights on it, how long is it going to take? 6 months? 8 months? So that's 8 months of a year, if I could do it in that time, that I would lose. And I would be back to the situation that I'm in with this one. I wouldn't change anything, it'd be very similar to what I've got at the moment, because this is how I want my van. Okay, I might make some money out of it, but for me, time is more precious than that. I don't want to be spending time building a van, I want to be out using it. We want to go out exploring and enjoying ourselves. So, you could build yourself a van, and you could start off by building a budget van, and no, you could build a van for 2 or 3 grand, and you could sell that and you might make 500 quid on it, and then you could build another one and make some more money on that. So you could actually progress your way through building your own vans and making money out of them. But if you was to go out and spend a significant chunk of money, or buy one from a showroom, or even buy a second-hand purpose-built one, the likelihood is, as soon as you've bought that and as soon as you've driven it away from the forecourt, it's going to be worth a lot less money than it was when you actually bought it. Camper vans are excellent. We love our van. You know, we could have looked at possibly buying a cottage in the country or something and having a weekend retreat where we can go to. But that's not us. I like my adventure sports and I like travelling around. So having a camper van at a reasonable price of this standard is just excellent. I can fit all the toys in it, all the gear in it, everything we need, and we can go anywhere we want to go, usually driven by the weather, and have a great time. And I think that's what the freedom is of having a camper van. The size of the camper van is quite critical as well. So this is a mid-wheelbase high roof. Now, having a mid-wheelbase high roof is great for me, and we've made the decision to have a van of this size. We don't have a toilet and a shower unit. So we're not having a toilet and a shower unit means I don't have to have a water heater, and I don't have to lose all that space in the van. So we've got lots of space in this. We have a portaloo that we have in here, and we have a shower for outside use, and we can get washed in the sink. and if need be we'll go to a campsite or go to an hotel even if you're on a long trip to get a shower or whatever we need, or even a service station. So that's not a big issue for us. So having a mid-wheelbase that fits in a parking space is so much better for us because it doesn't restrict us getting into a town to buy supplies, etc, etc, and it's easier to manoeuvre around. But if you get a long wheelbase van, that enables you to put a shower unit in, and it can be almost self-contained. But what you've got to remember is if you put in a shower unit in, it's just not losing the space of the shower unit. You need additional water tanks because you'll use water for your shower. You may need to cut an hole in the side of the van or take your Portaloo cassette out of the van, which isn't always pleasant. You'll need a waste tank, a bigger waste tank, to get all your wastewater. And then you are restricted somewhat that you have to get rid of that water at a particular spot, or you're using more water on a regular basis as part of it. So me and Joe, we don't mind. You know, we've done lots of camping over the years, and we've had sailing boats that have had portaloos and even buckets in instead of toilets. So this is luxury for us in this, and the compromise of having a smaller van is absolutely perfect for us. It doesn't cause us a problem whatsoever. So the size of the van is quite critical. Now, if you've watched our videos before, we've had many vans in various different configurations, but our van before this was a T5 camper van. And we had that for about 7 years. That didn't have a heater, it didn't have a toilet, but the main frustration with us, with that van, is that you had to plan what gear you was taking with you. So if you was going somewhere, you had to plan. So if we was going away for a weekend or a week, say, do I take a surfboard, do I take a kayak, do I take a canoe? Because you couldn't fit all the gear on the roof. And then, do you take a wetsuit, do you take a dry suit, do you take your snorkeling gear, do you try to take the diving gear, do you take your walking gear? So limited space for storage was a bit of a problem. But the other thing as well is that you couldn't really have the bed down and use all the facilities in the van. So you had to put the bed up. So in the morning, if you want to cook breakfast, you had to put the bed up to get to the cooker and cook breakfast properly. This configuration here, having the fixed bed, is perfect for that because you can lay in the bed, jump out of bed, put the kettle on, cook something to eat, put the TV on. Such a game changer. For us, we desperately wanted a fixed bed in our next van. So having this fixed bed in the van was great. And I don't know if you've seen it before, but the advantage for the fixed bed we have, it's crossways across the van. And I'm 6 foot tall, and I can stretch out in this bed. And the reason I can stretch out in this bed is because we're using the maximum width of the van for the bed. The windows are actually stuck on the outside and they're just thick glass. So our bed is actually 6 foot wide. Sorry, 6 foot long, 4 foot wide. So we've got the perfect setup for that because it's also at a height where you can sit up, you can watch TV in there, you can sit up and read a book, and it's a place you can just lounge out and chill out in. You can sit up there and eat your dinner if you want. But also underneath there, you've got a massive space to put all your gear. So when we go away, we already have dry suits, wetsuits, climbing gear, walking gear, all the gears on the back door for the canoes, the paddles, additional lighting, there's a wood burning stove in the back we can pull out, there's carpets, there's seats, there's chairs, everything's in there, and you don't have to put it all in before you go away, and you don't have to compromise. It's all just kept in there, off we go, and whenever we get somewhere, think, oh, we're going to do this today, we'll just dig the relevant bit of piece of kit out the van to actually do it. And if you consider that as well with some motorhomes, and some vans that are converted by manufacturers, you don't always get that space. You don't always get the space that you may need for the type of activities you want. So another compromise you actually might have to make if you're buying one from a manufacturer is that the van will come as it is, and you'll have to adapt your lifestyle or what you'll take with you to actually fit that van. So you do actually see some motorhomes and some other camper vans that have been bought off the shelf, and they have to take a trailer, or they're putting roof boxes on the roof to take some additional bits because it won't actually fit on, or they're fitting bike racks on the back and putting a box on the bike rack to carry additional bits and pieces. So think of your lifestyle, think of the type of things you want to do. This van works for us because it ticks all those boxes. There's all the fishing gear in the back, there's the metal detector that we never use, there's everything we possibly want in the back of this, that we can just jump in it, throw the relevant bits on the roof, throw the relevant bits on the bike rack at the back if you want to take an electric bike or the other bikes, and go. And then when we get there, we have everything with us that we can use as and when we need it. Consider as well is about power. Now, I have a very simple mains power unit in the back of this, and I'll put a link to the van tour video at the end of this so you can have a full tour around if you want to have a look. But basically you can buy a power unit that's for a 10. It's like a distribution unit, it's got some trip fuses on that, and it comes with a lead that plugs into a 110 socket on a campsite. And I've fastened that in the back. I've not drilled any holes in the camper van, so I just drop the cable underneath the door, close the door and plug it in. That works perfect for us. I run another socket from that on a 13 amp plug, and we've got a socket in the back if we want to use mains power when we're on hookup, or if we're at home or at a friend's, that we can plug it in at. Likewise, there's a battery charger that fits into that 240 volt power bank, and it's an intelligent battery charger that charges the batteries up. We have 560 watts of batteries, 2 batteries that equate to 560 watts of batteries, and everything in the van runs off 12 volts. We don't have an inverter. The inverter side of things are not that economical to use. Okay, if you're critical, it's critical for you, like you need mains power and you can't go to hookup, you might have to have an inverter. But if you think what actually happens is it takes 12 volts of power, puts it through various coils and condensers and capacitors to actually power that up to 240 volts, and it will significantly drain your batteries over a short period of time. It's not the efficient way to use it. And what a lot of people also do, which is totally ridiculous, is they'll plug a laptop into an inverter that's plugged into 12 volt batteries. And for the majority of laptops now, you can actually get 12 volt power supplies. So if you actually look at the power supply for your laptop, you'll find that it'll have the voltage on there and the ampage. And most of them are at 9-12 volts. So realistically what you're doing is you're taking the power from a 12 volt battery, you're putting through an inverter, you're putting it through an adapter which is on the plug to drop it back down to small voltage to go into your laptop, which is just an inefficient way of using power. So I used to be an electronics engineer years back, and I just run everything I possibly can off 12 volts. We have a socket that we very rarely use, and everything in here, charging up my cameras, the laptop, anything else is all done by 12 volts. We very rarely use the main socket. We might have a radiator that we'll plug in there, but we don't need that because we've got a diesel meter. Likewise, the batteries are big enough, so with no solar, no hookup, I can get 3 or 4 days using everything in the van, including the TVs, the Wi-Fi and everything else in the van and the heater, without draining my batteries to a level that's going to compromise them. With lead acid batteries or AGM batteries, your basic rule is you don't use more than 50% of the capacity. So I have enough capacity there, so 3, maybe even 4 days, we can have all the stuff on we want. Joe can have the heater on at 80 degrees, we can have everything on in here, and we have enough power for 3 or 4 days to be in one spot. And we have a battery-to-battery charging unit in the van as well, so the alternator will charge the main battery for the starter motor, and then it will switch over through an intelligent charging unit to charge the big batteries at the back as well. And if you think about it, 3 or 4 days in one place without moving is quite unlikely. You generally move every couple of days, or we do, or actually after 3 days at the max. Or if you're on a campsite, I've got an hookup and I can plug it in. So considering how much you use power-wise and how your power configurations are is quite critical as well. The batteries on this, it's a big van, it's a 3.5 ton van. The fit out inside is quite light, so I've got these 2 massive batteries which actually sit across the rear axle. They're in the best position possible, and and they're plumbed in, wired into the fuse box and to a distribution unit, and everything else will run off 12 volts as part of that. So if need be, I can plug it in and charge up the batteries, give them a boost, or if I'm on a long drive, the intelligent charging unit, the split charging unit from the engine that charges the back batteries, gives enough power to charge those up as part of that. And then on the roof, there's 2 solar panels. There's 300 watts of solar on the roof. They're not the best panels, they're flexi panels, and they're actually underneath the roof rack. And the majority of time, I've actually got canoes and kayaks and surfboards on the roof, so no sun's going to get to them anyway. But when it's sat in the driveway at home, there's a trickle charge coming from them. It keeps the batteries healthy. Or if we do go away and we take the stuff off the roof, it can get a bit of sun. Or we go away and we don't take anything on the roof, it still gets a bit of sun to give a bit of power. But the main charging for my leisure batteries in this van is from the split charging intelligent unit that's in the van. The difference between the split charger and the intelligent unit is the split charger is just basically a relay, and a relay is a switch. So the battery that starts your engine will get to a particular level, it'll flick over, and then it'll put the power to your back batteries. But there's no regulation on that. It'll probably put out about 13, 14 volts and a few amps, and it'll just power that through to your batteries and charge your batteries as you go along. The intelligent battery-to-battery charger is a bit like the battery charger that you would plug in at home, an expensive one. It looks at the condition of your batteries. It can give them a big boost if your batteries are low, and then it can trickle charge, it's easy for me to say, the batteries to keep them on a flow rating and keep them healthy as part of that. So it's a bit less damaging to the batteries. So this van originally had 220 amp hours of battery, and now it's got 560, which is completely adequate to do anything we need to do as part of that. The diesel heater we have in this van is fitted into the main tank, which is just ease, because you're not worrying about filling up a separate tank and having to accommodate a separate tank somewhere in your van, and the potential splashing of diesel when you're filling it up. So there's a line from the Epispatcher diesel heater that goes into the main fuel tank of this, and it doesn't go down to the bottom of the fuel tank, it only goes so far down. So if we're running out of diesel, it's not going to be all used by our diesel heater. But saying that, the diesel heater uses very little. And being a well insulated van, it can quite easily get up to 70, 80 degrees, even if it's minus 4 or 5 outside, as we've tested. I do keep a separate jerry can of 20 litres of diesel in the back, that's in there. So if we are in the remote areas of Scotland, we don't have to travel all the way back to get some diesel. If we're starting to run low on diesel, there's enough diesel there I can put straight into my tank to enable the heater and the van to run as part of that, so we've got the backup. We don't have an external gas cylinder. We have a standard gas cylinder to a regulator to a 2-ring burner. And again, nice and simple. There's literally a copper pipe that comes off the 2-ring gas burner. There's a gas pipe fitted to that with Jubilee clips to a regulator that fits on top of the bottle. When the bottle's empty, you swap the bottle. And we carry a spare bottle in the back, and we also have a bottle. The bottle in the back can be used for our gas barbecue that you can cook on inside or out. And we have another double ring burner with a grill that we can use either inside or outside if there's any problem with the gas supply or any problem with the cooker. So again, we've kept it as simple as we possibly can, like our water tanks. If you have fixed water tanks, that's great, you don't have to worry about them, but trying to fill them up is not always easy. And if you're out in some remote areas, you probably can't get your van close enough or the hose pipe to fill your tanks up. So we have 15 litre tanks, and we can take 3 15 litre water tanks, fresh water tanks, to a tap, or even into a toilet, or into somebody's house even, fill it up from a public water supply, carry the tanks back and put them back in the van. We don't have a waste holding tank either. The waste is only from our sink, and if we need to capture that, we'll literally put a folding bucket underneath the outlet pipe and catch the waste water and then pour it down the sink if we need to. generally we use biodegradable washing up liquid, and we don't put anything down the sink that's nasty, and if we're away in the middle of nowhere we just let that drain away. But if it's going to be embarrassing on a campsite, or if the rules of the campsite, or if you don't want to embarrass yourself on a park up somewhere, a car park with water pouring out the bottom of your van, you can simply put a container underneath to catch it. I hope it answers many of the questions and the debates that I've been having with a few people regarding various setups and bits and pieces about the vans. So I'll link below the information regarding the Campervan and Overlander show. We'll also be at Camp Quirky, and undoubtedly there'll be a number of other meetups that we'll go to this year. I can't emphasise enough, if you're looking at getting a campervan, changing a campervan, building a campervan, or buying a campervan or a motorhome built by a manufacturer, get to some of these shows, go and speak to people that are using them, go onto campsite, knock on the door, have a conversation with people. Generally people are more than welcome to let you have a look around the van and answer all your questions. So don't be frightened to ask the question about how does your toilet work, or where do you get your water from, or how did you wire that in, or what would you change with your van. Because what you'll find is the majority of people who've got campervans have spent endless hours looking on YouTube, and they've also gone around other people's vans that have had them and said, oh, I like that, how you done that, where did you buy that from, how did you do the other.